I know that I'm gonna look back on 2024 and be able to say, I did that thing. I really went for it this last year. I lived life. There were highs, there were lows, there were things I do 1,000 times over again, and things that I probably would not repeat. But I learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I want to share some of them with you. Let me introduce myself really quick. My name is Michaela, and I like to shine bright and share light. So, without further ado, here are 10 lessons that I learned in 2024. Lesson number 1. Dreams change. We're going in chronological order here. And in January of this year, I went to New York City for the very first time. And it was so exciting for me because I've always wanted to work for network TV in New York City. So that's like the Today Show or Good Morning America. And me and my roommate were there, and we went and saw both of those studios. One's near Times Square and the other is in Rockefeller Center, and it was just so cool to see these places that I've always dreamed of working, and then I was like, oh my gosh, they're right there. And what I learned while exploring the city for the couple of days we were there is that I am not a city girl. Okay, I like the wide open spaces. Okay, I need the occasional quiet. You just don't really get that all too frequently when you live in a dense city. And so it was an interesting moment because the dream was the same, but it had also changed in my head of how I'd always seen it. So I, had a new experience. I lived more life and learned like, okay, maybe this is not exactly what I was hoping for, what I thought it would look like. It's kind of like a piece of clay or like a piece of marble, and you're chipping away at what the art's supposed to be, and the more experiences you have in life, the more you're able to chip away at the clay until you find this beautiful piece of art. And that's kind of how I see my dreams now, that I still have my dream of working for network TV. I can just hear it in my head. Live from Studio 1A in Rockefeller Center, this is Today with meteorologist Michaela Lucero. Can't you hear it? I can hear it. But it looks a little different now that I know, okay, city's not for me, still want to work there. We're just going to have a commute, okay? We're going to have to commute from wherever, I don't know, wherever I can get some wide open spaces to get in there. But it was just interesting to know, like, oh my gosh, this dream that I've always had in my head of like this exact way I want it to be, it's like, oh my gosh, that's not how it's going to be. And that's okay. Because it's probably going to be better the other way. Lesson number 2, do a little research. Okay. So, earlier this year, I went home to Colorado for my birthday. And me and my bestie, we wanted to go to a hot spring. Like those really hot pools. And there's a bunch across Colorado. And some of them are like kind of far away. And so we were like looking for ones that were kind of close, and we found some in this town called Idaho Springs. And I've driven through that town a million times. If you're from Colorado, you've probably driven through it a bajillion times. And I was like, all right, cool. Hot springs, not that far away. Done. So we get in the car, we drive to these hot springs, pay admission, and they're like, they're just down the stairs. I was like, down there? Tenant pool? So we descend a long flight of stairs, right? We go to these like super dark changing rooms, put on our swimsuits, follow the signs to the hot springs. These hot springs were not like anything I've ever seen before, okay? And I've seen some hot springs. They were made of interesting stones that I've never seen before. And they were a very weird depth. I was like, you either need to be deeper or shallower. More shallow. It was just very, very weird. And another thing we learned, okay, neither of us really like super hot springs. We were both sitting there just like boiling in this water, and neither one of us wanted to be like, I don't like it. So we were both just sitting there miserable, just like, This is nice. This is nice. So we left there. They had another pool that was a little bit cooler. Still hot, but not as hot. And we hung out there for a little bit. There were a bunch of plants. Like, it was just such a unique experience. I'll say that. And so the lesson is do a little research. If we would have done even just a clickety-clack on Google, okay? 1 or 2 Yelp reviews, we could have maybe saved a few dollars. We wouldn't have this story, but I'm all about the full send mentality, you know? But into the new year, a little bit of research can go a very long way. So just do a little research before you embark on an adventure. Lesson number 3. Get a disco ball. That's self-explanatory. All right, lesson number 4. Everybody is somebody to somebody. So I had this coworker named Kevin. And if you didn't know Kevin, you would think that he was just the grumpiest, grouchiest old dude known to mankind, okay? He had this very gruff persona. His shell outside was just so, like, he kind of just seemed like Oscar the Grouch. But let me tell you, me and Kevin worked on the weekends together, and I had some time to get to know him. And it only took a couple quick conversations to realize that Kevin was a real big sweetheart. He was just so kind. Don't get me wrong, he was still pretty gruff on the outside, okay? Told her how it was. He did not sugarcoat things, but he was very kind. And a little story to tell you about Kevin is that there was one day he was at work and he was drinking coffee out of this mug, and it was a station mug and it was black and yellow and it said weather on it. And I was like, that mug is super cool. And a little tangent here. If you work in news, you will come to find you accumulate so many mugs, okay? Coffee mugs, that's like the gift that you get, like the station gift when you start working there, when you end working there, or Christmas gifts, like you just get so many mugs, whatever station you work at. So I was surprised that Kevin was drinking that mug that I'd never seen before. And I was like, that thing's pretty cool. It says weather. I like it. I wonder if I can try and find one someday for me. And that was that. So the next day comes and Kevin walks into the studio and I'm working away. He walks up to me and he goes, I took this home and washed it. So here you go. And he gave me his mug. This is mine to keep forever. And I have so many more stories just like that of Kevin just going out of his way to just do something very kind. But this mug is my Kevin coffee cup. But it's extra special now because earlier this year, Kevin passed away unexpectedly. And it was pretty tough for the weekend crew. His desk became like a memorial for him where people brought flowers and left notes for him. And our weekend crew the following weekend did a small service for him where we all just shared stories. And it was just mind-blowing, awesome, interesting to learn so much about him after he had passed away. And you might just pass somebody on the street, never see him again, but to somebody else, that's their best friend. That's the love of their life. That's their mom. You know, everybody is somebody to somebody. And I think that can be reassuring for us as just people when there are times when we feel lonely. You are somebody to somebody. You know, to me, Kev was one of my coworkers who gave me his own coffee mug, who would find pens for me. I'm very specific about the pens that I like to write with, and he would find them for me so I could write with them. But hearing stories from my coworkers about how much he loved Harry Potter or his cooking skills or some of his old war stories, it was so interesting to hear all these different things about him and all these different facets and see all these different kinds of relationships he had with all these different people. And it just really goes to show you that, number one, don't judge a book by its cover. And number two, everybody, and this includes you, is somebody to somebody. We're not alone. You're somebody to somebody. I'm somebody to somebody. Lesson number 5 is about heartbreak. Heartbreak sucks. Doesn't matter how old you are, what season of life you're in, heartbreak sucks. It's terrible. But learning that the heartbreak of leaving something or someone behind is so much less painful than the constant heartbreak you feel of staying somewhere you know you don't belong. And I am a true 100% believer that if something is meant to be, it will be. And sometimes it might just look a little different than how we thought it was going to look. Usually it's way better. But heartbreak is part of being human. Lesson number 6, go see the world with your besties. I have 2 best friends from college who we have started traveling together once a year. So this year we went to Italy. It was our first international trip and it was an amazing adventure. We had a lot, and I mean a lot, of travel snafus. Okay. Like their flights getting canceled, me being alone for almost 2 straight days in Europe. We will get to that in lesson 7. I got super sick at the end of the trip. And you know when you're sick and all you want to do is take a really hot shower? Well, our Airbnb in one spot we were at was in like a 1,000-year-old castle. How do you think the hot water worked in a 1,000-year-old castle bathroom? Exactly. There was a day when we accidentally all got separated, couldn't find each other. It was a little bit of a mess. But I look back on that trip with so much joy because we did it. We went out and we had a great time. We got to see amazing things. We got to see one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Colosseum. It was amazing. And yes, there were some mishaps along the way, but I would not trade those mishaps for the world because it also meant that I got to dance the night away under the stars and the lights of the Colosseum one Roman evening. Amazing. And I got to try new foods and stay up all night with my besties, giggling, telling old stories. It was a blast. It was so fun. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I can't go to Europe. I can't travel. It's too expensive. Let me give you a couple tips. We plan our trip a year in advance. We plan where we're going a year in advance so that we can have as much time as possible to save up money. We also share an Airbnb or share a hotel room. Room, okay? Singular. We do what we can to keep the cost extremely low. We budget ahead of time so we know how much money that we can spend while we're there. We keep it pretty cheap. And it's possible, yes, the flight was our most expensive thing that we had to purchase, but everything else we were able to really keep our costs low, and we planned ahead of time, a year ahead of time, to save up money to go. So you can travel, you can see the world, you just have to plan ahead. Save your money. You can do it. We have another Worldwide Wanderers trip coming up this year. I might share a little bit about how we are planning our 2025 trip. Maybe that'll be coming up. Stay tuned for that one. Okay, lesson 7. I told you it tied in. Lesson 7 is do it alone. Allow me to explain. So the first day in Italy. Here's how it was supposed to go down. All right. I get to the airport at about 10 a.m. My besties get to the airport at about 10:30 a.m. We meet at the airport, we go through customs together, we enjoy the first day, and then we go to bed, and we wake up the next day super early to go on a full day tour of Rome. It's a guided tour we signed up for, okay? That was the plan. Okay. So I am holding up my end of the bargain. I'm on my plane. I'm headed to Rome, right? My besties, they're both in Colorado. Their first flight gets delayed. And they're starting to think, oh my gosh, we're not going to make our connection to get to Rome. So they're quite worried. And so am I. I'm like, you two are together. I am alone. So their flight gets canceled. And they get on one and they get to Calgary, Canada. And I'm on the plane, like, getting intermittent texts from them, like, delayed, canceled, and then, like, radio silence because I'm over the ocean, okay? The Wi-Fi's not that great over the ocean. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what is about to happen? They get to Calgary, and they can't get a flight for at least 24 hours, okay? They have to spend the night in Calgary, Canada, which means I have to spend my first day alone in Europe, in Rome. And I was so scared because the three of us, Michaela, Emily, Peter, okay? Peter speaks Italian. And so we're like, great, we don't have to learn Italian. We're good. Peter will do all the talking. Peter wasn't there. So I am freaking out, okay? I'm sitting on the little airline, okay, middle seat, because I chose what I thought was an aisle seat, but there were 4 seats in a row. I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm scared, right? I'm worried. And we land and I start chit-chatting with the guy next to me, and I was like, hey, do you come here often? Because I don't, and I'm scared. Anyway, this man smelled like my grandpa, so I knew he was safe. Anyway, me and him become fast friends, and he just takes care of me. It was seriously such a God moment. Thank you, Lord. If you want the full story, it's on my Instagram. But long story short, me and him, we get off the plane together. He helps me get through customs, helps me get to my bags, pays for my train ticket, goes with me on the train into Rome, takes me out for cappuccino and pastries, and then helps me get a taxi to get to my Airbnb. And it was awesome. He was so sweet. Oh my gosh. Thank you, sir. Anyway, I go to bed in my Airbnb by myself. I'm scared. And the next day we have our full tour of Rome that we all have already paid for. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? Do I go? Like, this was supposed to be the 3 of us on this big trip, and now I'm by myself. And I'm like, well, we already paid for it, so I went. And it was awesome, okay? I made some new friends in my little tour group, and I got to see all of Rome in one day. Well, as much of Rome as you can see in one day. But it was just so amazing, and I was so nervous to go find this group, and that was its own little snafu in and of itself. But I was so scared because I didn't speak the language, and I didn't fully know where to go and what to do, and I was nervous to be in this big old group of probably a bunch of couples and groups of families, and then just be by myself. And I was like, but I'm so glad I went. I'm so glad I went and did it on my own, and I saw so many amazing things, and I learned so much, and I made new friends in my little tour group. And me and my friends, we met up later that day. We found each other. We met at the Airbnb. All was well. We had a great rest of the trip, minus the sickness. I think about, oh my gosh, what if I didn't go? Like, what if I was just too scared, never went on that tour, and never got to experience what I experienced? So, lesson number 7, do it alone. Lesson number 8, show up for your people. In 2024, it was on my bingo card to run a marathon. I have always wanted to run a marathon. It has been a goal of mine for my whole life. And me and one of my friends, Molly, we were like, let's just do it. So we signed up for the Marine Corps Marathon in DC. And we didn't train as much as we should have, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But I was so excited to run this marathon, right? I was just going to give it my best effort, and I didn't train as much as I should have, and so my goal was just to make it to 13 miles, right? I just wanted to get to the half marathon. I've done a bunch of those before. I was like, all right, as long as I can get to half, I'm going to feel accomplished, right? And my mom flew out to DC and stayed with me for a few days and was there for my whole race, and it just was so meaningful to me that I got to share that experience with her, because I don't know if I'm ever gonna do that again. I will not do a marathon again for probably a very, very, very long time, but it meant so much to me to see her on the race course and to see her there and to hear her cheering for me, and even the days leading up to it, you know, going to packet pickup together and getting to walk through, you know, the expo and do some shopping together. Like, it was just so special to me that, you know, she came out to support me and to watch me, and I will never, ever, ever forget that. Thanks, Mom. Love ya. Lesson number 9 is, if you're not failing, your dreams are probably not big enough. So in the same vein, talking about the marathon, I've done a bunch of half marathons, and I've always just wanted to see if I could do a full. And so, of course, this year I signed up for the Marine Corps Marathon, and I did not train how I should have. Yes, I was running, but I was definitely not training for a marathon, right? And going in, my goal was like, all right, let's just make it to half and see how far we go. And every mile after that is just icing on the cake, right? So I made it to 18.62 miles, okay? Farthest I've ever run. 18.62 miles, that's pretty far, okay? Do I wish I would have finished and made it all? Yes, of course. But I'm so glad I tried. I'm so glad that I tried and failed, because now I know what it's like to at least attempt a marathon. I don't have to keep saying, oh, maybe one day I'll try, maybe one day. One day has come and gone. I have tried it. I also have figured out that, you know what? If I never do that again, that's all right. That's okay. Dream big. Lesson number 10 is something that I am definitely trying to bring into next year, the new year, is net positive versus net negative. And here's what I mean by that, and here's kind of what I've been learning. I want to have a net positive contribution to whatever space I enter into. How can I leave this conversation not being toxically positive, but not bringing more negativity? It's really hard to do when you really start to kind of audit, like, okay, that situation I just left, was it positive, negative? Did I leave it better? Did I leave it worse? You know, not bringing things down, but raising the bar and raising the level and raising what, you know, raising the bar for what I expect of myself and what I want to leave in this world and in the places that I exist in. So, net positive, net negative. I want to leave net positive in every interaction, room, situation, scenario that I'm in. So there you go. 10 things I learned in 2024. And I'm bringing them with me into 2025. I hope you had a great 2024. And I hope you have an even better 2025. I'll see you next time.